The Prime Minister dismisses Hanson poll surge. A man hurt as a federal minister runs protest gauntlet. And another movie triumph for Geoffrey Rush.
From National 9 News, this is Nightline with Gina Boon.
Good evening. Prime Minister Howard has played down the political threat posed by Pauline Hanson's One Nation party, suggesting her popularity in the opinion polls will be short-lived. But Ms Hanson says public support for her party is growing, and she claims it's coming from mainstream Australia, right across the political spectrum. Laurie Wilson has our report.
She may be riding high in the polls now, but the Nightline.
And Pauline Hanson's One Nation party may be gathering momentum, but how much political depth underpins the populist rhetoric? One man who claims to know is Ms Hanson's former minder, John Pasquarelli. He's watched her closely since she sacked him last December. From Melbourne, Mr Pasquarelli is speaking with Paul Lyneham.
John Pasquarelli, welcome to Nightline.
Thanks, Paul.
Are you surprised by Pauline Hanson's spectacular rise in the polls?
No, Paul. This current Bulletin Morgan poll just confirms their polling of last year.
John Pasquarelli, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Paul.
Gina, back to you.
Thank you, Paul. Sydney police are investigating an incident involving Transport Minister John Sharp after a car in which he was travelling knocked down a 70-year-old protester. The man received cuts and bruises. Police will interview the driver of the car tomorrow. Hugh Riminton reports.
As Transport Minister, John Sharp has to lecture us about road safety.
In London, Mark Ferguson for Nightline.
After the break, the Oklahoma bombing trial, here's how and why Timothy McVeigh blew up the federal building, and factory explosions rock Istanbul. Radio Australia has won a funding reprieve that will allow it to retain shortwave services in 4 foreign languages, including Indonesian. But although the federal government is loosening the purse strings for Radio Australia, other ABC radio and television services remain threatened. Earlier today, an ABC board meeting in Melbourne was delayed by staff demonstrating over funding cuts. They littered the foyer with letters of support from Radio Australia listeners and lay down in protest. The demonstrators also briefly occupied the ABC boardroom. Rebel forces in Zaire have made another leap towards the capital Kinshasa, prompting President Mobutu to agree to talks with guerrilla leader Laurent Kabila. The pair will meet aboard a South African naval vessel later this week. Meanwhile, aid agencies fear for the fate of tens of thousands of Rwandan refugees, who the rebels are demanding be shipped back across the border.
Today, more of Rwanda's Hutu refugees emerged from hiding in eastern Zaire.
In a moment, Jim Waley continues his coverage from London on tomorrow's British general election.
Good evening again from London. We're now in the final day of campaigning, and the mood is desperate for the Conservatives, with latest opinion polls still pointing to a crushing defeat, and John Major's likely successors lining up for his job. 24 hours to save Britain from disaster is the Tory plea, while Labour wants the people's trust, their trust in Tony Blair, and the way he's dragged a party so steeped in socialism to the centre. The worry for many voters, though, is that the unions and the left will rear their head should Labour win power, plunging Britain back into economic chaos.
Are you ready?
Now, though, it's back to Gina in Sydney.
Thanks, Jim. It's a bit hard to follow on from Kathy late, isn't it? Still to come on Nightline, the finance and weather, and in sport, the scramble for league coach John Mooney's Auckland job, and in AFL, a reprieve for Essendon.
Bruised ribs at the moment. You see the replay of Timothy Banks did well a moment ago.
To sport now, and for the third successive night, the AFL Tribunal in Melbourne has been busy, and for Essendon, the good results kept flowing. Defenders Dean Wallace and Matthew Banks were both cleared of their charges from the Anzac Day match against Collingwood. Andrew Bensley was there.
In the first of the cases tonight, the Tigers' Ashley Prescott appeared for striking North Melbourne's Wayne
Clinton Fletcher for Nightline.
In finance news, a disappointing report card on our trade figures with the biggest ever monthly slump in the value of exports, putting our trade balance into a $103 million deficit. That's a far cry from expert predictions of a $100 million surplus. The Australian share market closed almost 9 points up today. In Tokyo, the Nikkei was up 480 points, the biggest market surge in 4 months, as some companies began buying back their own shares. In London tonight, the FT100 is 7 points up in morning trading. Gold is fetching $340.15 US an ounce. And in European trading tonight, the Aussie dollar is buying 78.15 US cents, 1.34 Deutschmark, 99 yen and 47p. Well, to the national weather, and a high-pressure system continues to sit in the Tasman and a low remains off the north coast of Western Australia, while a cold front moves through the Bight. The forecast: fine conditions in Darwin, windy in Brisbane tomorrow, should be fine in Sydney, Canberra and Melbourne, becoming cloudy in Adelaide, fine conditions in Hobart, and for Perth, a few showers there. And that's the news this Wednesday night. I'm Gina Boon, and from all of us here at Nightline, good night.